This video explains the Bretton Woods system and its collapse. And before that, we would like to just understand what is an international monetary system and why is international monetary system important. We know that an efficient international monetary system is a necessary precondition for the smooth functioning and expansion of international trade. So just banking system helps the domestic trade. We know that for domestic exchange of goods and services, we need a banking system in our country, in every country. Just like that, to transact commodities or to exchange commodities across different countries in the world, and thereby expanding the scope of international trade, we need a monetary system, an international monetary system or international financial system being required. And that is a precondition for the smooth functioning and expansion of international trade. Here we explain the transition of the international monetary system. How has this international monetary system been evolved over years? What have been the different stages of transition of the international monetary system? That we would like to discuss in this video. First, we will throw some lights on the pre-Bretton Woods period. We will see Bretton Woods period after this. But what was the situation before the Bretton Woods period, or pre-Bretton Woods period? Until the post-World War First period, most of the major industrialized nations of the world were operating under a fixed exchange rate system called gold standard. So we had a fixed exchange rate system until the post-World War First period. And that fixed exchange rate system is known as the gold standard. What is this gold standard? Under this gold standard system, each nation defined its currency in terms of gold. So a nation would define its currency in terms of gold. That means how much gold would your 1 unit of currency demand? Or how much gold would be exchanged for 1 unit of currency? That would decide the exchange rate of the currency. So under this system, each nation defined its currency in terms of gold. For instance, in 1900, that year, the dollar was equal to 1/20th of an ounce of gold. Of an ounce of gold. 1/20 of an ounce of gold. That is the dollar, that's the value of dollar. So dollar is equal to 1/20 of an ounce of gold. Whereas the pound was equal to 5/20 of an ounce. That means $1 would be equal to, so 1 pound would be equal to $5. Or to get 1 pound, you may have to give $5. $5. The pound value is very high because you will get 5 out of 20 ounce of gold for 1 pound. Whereas for $1, you will get only 1 out of 20 ounce of gold. Therefore, to get 1 pound, you have to spend $5. So the exchange rate between pound and dollar is determined on the basis of the on the basis of the value of gold that each unit of dollar and pound would command. In short, the exchange rate was used to be fixed on the basis of the gold standard. The exchange rate was used to be fixed on the basis of the gold standard. In this example, it is very clear. This example tells these things very clear. So here, $1 is equal to $1 is equal to 1/20 ounce of gold, whereas 1 pound is equal to 5/20 ounce of gold. That means to get 1 pound, you will have to give $5. To get 1 pound, you will have to give $5. This is the exchange rate determined at that time. So therefore, gold standard was the basis for determining the exchange rate between countries during this period of time. In addition, each nation agreed to convert its paper money into gold on demand. So that means convertible currency. So every unit of a country's currency needed to be converted into gold on demand. Today we have no convertible currency system. Today we have inconvertible currency system. But that time, nations agreed to convert the paper currencies into gold on demand, because currency was issued against the backing of the gold. Therefore, the countries could easily convert the paper money into gold on demand in those days. In other words, the convertible paper currency system was in existence during this period of time. That means until the post-World War first period. Okay, now in detail we will discuss the gold standards. Under the gold standard, accounts between countries were settled by the exchange of gold. So gold was a basis. If a country imported goods worth more than those it exported, if a country imported goods worth more than those it exported, then definitely gold flowed out. So if you buy more goods than what you export, then definitely you will have to give more gold into the other countries, because you are importing more and exporting less. That means gold would flow out. Under the gold standard, money supply depended on monetary gold reserves. That I have told, that money supply was backed by the gold. So to issue more currency, if you wanted to issue more currency, then you have to keep gold equal to the value of the currency issued. So money supply depended upon the monetary gold reserves. If you keep more monetary gold reserves, then you can issue more and more money. A reduction in gold reserves. Suppose that if there is a reduction in gold reserve, country's gold reserves comes down. Then maybe because of the deficit in BOP, then that will contract money supply. That will reduce money supply. So decline in gold reserves means decline in money supply. Increase in gold reserve means increase in money supply. An increase in gold reserves due to surplus on the BOP caused an expansion in money supply. So under the gold standard system, money supply depended on the monetary gold reserves. If a country could get more gold reserves, then that country was said to be in a position of expanding the money supply. And if a country got less and less gold reserves, it means its money supply would be contracted. Or increase in gold reserves means increase in money supply or expansion in money supply. Decrease or reduction in gold reserves means contraction in money supply or decline in money supply. In short, you can say that money supply depended upon the reserve of gold in those days. Until the outbreak of World War I, the gold standard worked remarkably well. So there was no problem with the gold standard system until the outbreak of the World War I. But the gold standard could not withstand abnormal periods of war and depression. This is a very important thing. Because in gold standard, the problem is that you have to keep gold. For every unit of currency that you issue, you have to keep gold. Then in times of war and depression, the countries found it very difficult to keep gold for each and every unit of currency that they issued. So the gold standard could not withstand, that could not continue under a situation of war and depression. This naturally led to the breakdown of gold standard. You know that today we have no gold standard system because it's very difficult for countries to issue currencies with the backing of the gold. It's very difficult for the countries to decide exchange rate on the basis of the gold commanding power of their currency. So gold standard, now it is not in existence. It actually, it disappeared from the monetary framework of our globe, of our world. So breakdown of the gold standard system. Great Britain suspended the gold standard in 1931. They said it could not be continued. They suspended the gold standard system. Other countries also followed the suit. By 1937, there was not a single country on the gold standard, and none showed any desire to revive it. So by 1937, the system, gold standard system collapsed, broke down. There was not a single country working on the gold standard, and none showed any kind of interest even to revive the gold standard. The breakdown of the gold standard in 1930s was followed by the era of inconvertible currencies. So today we have inconvertible currencies. So the breakdown of the gold standard system led to the era of inconvertible currencies. With the outbreak of the World War II, nations began to impose exchange controls. Foreign exchange controls started coming in with the outbreak of the World War II. After this, the Bretton Woods system came in. So after the Second World War, just before meanwhile the Second World War was going on, or it was going to end, the United Nations Monetary and Financial Conference was held at Bretton Woods. Bretton Woods is in United States. This meeting was held in July 1944. 44 countries took part in that meeting, and they proposed the establishment of 3 institutions. So please understand, following the Second World War, in July 1944, at Bretton Woods in United States of America, a conference was held in which 44 nations participated. And this conference proposed the establishment of 3 institutions. The first one is International Monetary Fund. And why was International Monetary Fund proposed? It was proposed to achieve exchange rate stability and to help member countries to finance short-term balance of payment deficits. Simply speaking, to sort out balance of payment deficit problems of member countries and to ensure exchange rate stability. This IMF, International Monetary Fund, was proposed to be established by this conference, Bretton Woods. Another institution is, today we know the name of the institution, World Bank. The exact meaning or the name of World Bank is International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, IBRD. This International Bank for Reconstruction and Development has later come to be known as the World Bank. And why was this World Bank proposed? The World Bank was proposed by this conference to assist in the post-war reconstructions and development of member countries. So for the post-war reconstructions and development of member countries. In short, IMF duty has been to sort out balance of payment deficits of the member countries and to ensure exchange rate stability. And World Bank's duty has been the development of the member countries and reconstruction of the member countries after the World War II. Another organization, and it was also proposed, that is International Trade Organization, ITO, was also proposed to be established. So 3 proposals were made by the Bretton Woods System in 1944, establishment of IMF, the establishment of IBRD, popularly known as World Bank, and the establishment of International Trade Organization. Of these, ITO was not born. International Trade Organization was not born then. That time it was not born, but there was a proposal. They proposed, the Bretton Woods System proposed the establishment of ITO, International Trade Organization, but that was not actually materialized. Later in 1948, GATT, General Agreement on Tariff and Trade, was formed, and then it was transformed into World Trade Organization in 1995. So ITO, although it was not established at that time, later GATT came in place of this ITO in 1948, and GATT was also transformed into WTO, World Trade Organization, in 1995. Thus, the Bretton Woods sisters, the IMF and the IBRD, the World Bank, took birth. The IMF began its operation in 1947. So IMF and World Bank are known as the Bretton Woods sisters. This is one, Bretton Woods sisters. And IMF began its operation in 1947. The International Monetary System introduced at Bretton Woods rested on 2 pillars. One is the maintenance of stable exchange rate. Whose duty is this? The maintenance of stable exchange rate is the duty of IMF, and multilateral credit mechanism institutions in IMF and supervised by it. So this is one pillar. So these are the 2 pillars on which the International Monetary System was built. Par value system or a pegged exchange rate system. The International Monetary System that existed from 1947 to 1971. So the system existed during the period between 1947. So in 1947, IMF started its operations. So from 1947 to 1971, the International Monetary System that was in existence in the world has been known as the par value system or pegged exchange rate system. So the International Monetary System that existed from 1947 to 1971 is generally known as the par value system or pegged exchange rate system. Under this system, each member country of the IMF was required to define the value of its currency in terms of gold or the US dollar. So under the gold standard, each country was required to define the value of currency in terms of dollar only. But here in terms of gold only. Under the gold standard system, Each country was required to define the value of its currency in terms of gold only. But now, US dollar came to be very predominant. So under this system, under this par value system or pegged exchange rate system, each member country of the IMF was required to define the value of its currency in terms of gold or the US dollar, and to maintain or peg the market value of its currency within plus or minus percentage of the defined par value. So you first define your par value. If you first define a country was asked to define the value of its currency in terms of gold or the US dollar, then they could make a variation plus or minus 1%. They can up it or they can increase it by 1%. They can reduce it by 1%. The value of the US dollar was set at 1 by 35 ounces of gold. This is in terms of the gold, the value of the dollar was set at this rate. Every other nation then defined its currency in terms of the dollar or gold. So first, the value of the dollar would be fixed against gold, or the dollar gold exchange, then that rate would be fixed first. Then other countries could define their currencies in terms of dollar or in terms of gold. US dollar then began to be regarded. This is a final, this is the result outcome of this system, Bretton Woods system. The US dollar began to be regarded by other nations as the international money. So that much dominance US dollar got with this Bretton Woods system. US dollar began to be regarded by other nations as the international money. Okay, so please see here, this rate is very important. The value of the US dollar was set at 1 by 35 ounces of gold. 1 by 35 ounces of gold. That's very important. Now, the IMF was also meant to provide credit facilities to member countries suffering from balance of payment problems. So if a country faced balance of payment problems, then IMF could help that by giving foreign exchange or by giving some kind of credit. So a country could be helped by IMF to get out of any balance of payment problems. The credit facilities which a member country could avail of depended on its quota, that is a member's contribution to the fund. So therefore, a quota is fixed. If you contributed to the fund, if you contributed to the IMF, then on the basis of your contribution, you will get a credit, just like a cooperative system, because a cooperation between the member country and the IMF. So the quota, or how much could you get from the IMF in times of balance of payment difficulties, that had been fixed on the basis of country's contribution to the fund. Prior to 1976, at least 25% of the quota could be paid by a member country in gold or dollar, and the rest the members' own currency. So you could make payment or you could contribute to the IMF in your own currency, but the thing is that at least 25% of your contribution should come either in the form of the gold or dollar. The rest, the 75%, could be made in the member's own currency. Now, a member country can pay a part of its quota in foreign currencies and the rest in its own currency. So today, the things have been changed in the IMF. Today, a member country can make the payment or can pay part of its quota in foreign currency and the rest in its own currency. It is not necessary that you must be making a contribution to the IMF in gold. You can make payment, you can contribute to IMF in a foreign currency as well. Special drawing rights is very important in the operation of an important contribution of the IMF for an increase in international liquidity is the creation of special drawing rights. Simply it is. What is SDR? The SDR is an international reserve asset created by the fund, taking into account the global need for supplementing existing reserve assets. The allocation of SDRs was made to those member countries that were participating in this facility in proportion to their quotas. So SDR, special drawing right, that was given to member countries on the basis of the proportion of their quotas. So how much a country contributes to the IMF fund, based on that, the allocation of SDR could be made. So allocation of SDR was made to those member countries that were participating in this facility in proportion to their quotas. Now, so here we see the Bretton Woods system. So Bretton Woods system existed during this period, 1947 to 1971. And you know that Bretton Woods meeting was held in 1944. Then 3 institutions were proposed to be established, and by 1947, IMF started its operation. From 1947 to 1971, a fixed exchange rate system was going on in the world, or a par value system was going on in the world. And in this fixed exchange rate system, dollar became very predominant, or dollar began to be regarded by other countries as an international money. So that's the specific thing to be borne in mind while discussing this Bretton Woods system. Now, we are going to see the breakdown of the Bretton Woods system. The Bretton Woods system collapsed in 1971. In 1971, it's collapsed. Why it collapsed? It collapsed because of huge accumulation of dollars outside the United States. So here we must understand that in the following the Bretton Woods system, from 1947 to 1971, dollar became very predominant. That was the strong currency. Every other country in the world started considering dollar as an international money. So therefore, all other countries, they were trying to secure as much gold as possible. As much gold as possible. So Germany was trying to seek more gold, store more gold. India was trying to store more gold. Like that, every country in the world was engaged in a process of securing, stoking more gold. Sorry, more dollar. So therefore, every country under the Bretton Woods system was brought under the impression that dollar would be predominant. Dollar would play an important role in international transactions. Therefore, there was a race, there was a competition among countries to have as much dollar as possible. And dollar started accumulating outside United States. This happened due to the growing balance of payment deficit in United States from the late 1950s. So United States started experiencing balance of payment deficit. Balance of payment deficit in United States resulted in the dollar flowing out. So other nations were receiving more dollar from United States. The US found it difficult to exchange dollar for gold at a fixed exchange rate. Under the Bretton Woods system, US was obliged to buy and sell gold at $35 per ounce. $35 per ounce. But by this time, it became very difficult for United States to keep this exchange rate, because United States had no sufficient dollar under its custody. Because of the balance of payment deficit, dollar flew out. dollar flew out. And for United States, it became very, very difficult to buy and sell gold at $35 per ounce, thus abrogating the IMF agreement, withdrawing from the IMF agreement, avoiding, not ready to keep the IMF agreement. It became very difficult for the United States to live up to the agreement of the IMF because United States found dollar moving out of its country to other countries. In December 1971, a group of nations met at the Smithsonian Institution in Washington and brought about an agreement to fix the dollar price of gold at $38 per ounce. So there was an attempt again on the part of group 10 countries. They met at the Smithsonian Institution in Washington. They brought about an agreement to fix the dollar price of gold at $38 per ounce. So from 35 per ounce, they raised to $38 per ounce. Under the Smithsonian agreement, currencies were allowed to fluctuate within a wider 2.5% range on either side. So 2.5% change could be. But the rate is $38 per ounce of gold, but the countries were allowed to make a variation up to 2.5%. But this agreement also lasted only for 14 months. The Smithsonian agreement lasted only for 14 months. The collapse of this Smithsonian agreement resulted in the emergence of a floating exchange rate system. So floating exchange rate system actually came into being practically in 1971. But we must understand one thing, that the floating exchange rate system or flexible exchange rate system is not so flexible as we think it of. Because no country wanted to see that its currency's value being determined fully by the demand and supply in the market. Because no country did like such a situation where the currency was used to be determined, the value of the currency was used to be determined in the international market by the demand and supply of the foreign exchange. So that was not something which countries wanted to see. So truly speaking, the exact floating exchange rate system or flexible exchange rate system that rarely exists. Countries have been intervening from time to time to keep the exchange rates within desired limits. So we allow the market to determine the exchange rate, but we will see that the variation in exchange rate does not cross a limit. It must be confined within a particular desirable limit proposed by the countries. This is what is known as managed float. So we allow the currencies to be determined, the value of the currencies to be determined by demand and supply. We make it floating, but still we attempt to manage it, we attempt to control it. So the countries attempt to see that the exchange rate does not or should not cross a particular limit. So this is what's called managed floating. So today actually we live in a world of managed float. We live in a world of managed float. So the fixed exchange rate system that has been given up by the countries, that has been avoided by the countries, and in place of that, today we have what is called a managed float. So with this, we end this presentation.